tell me where we're heading anyway, man.
Okay, so we're out the back of the medical school and we're heading to the back of the QMC hospital and we're hopefully going to find the sewage outlet and we can go and look in this little river and I can show you some of the animals that we work with in the lab. This is it.
Fountain of Youth.
The Fountain of Youth, well, the Fountain of Dirt, because that's where a lot of crap comes out of the hospital, just there. So the best thing, what we do is, you see there's actually some steps, convenient steps. So maybe we can get down there and I'll have a scramble around under the rocks. Yeah, you might get lucky. The water quality is actually really good, strangely. We take it into the lab and we use it to put the worms in and they're very happy. We get really strange looks as we come out of the hospital, these big carboys, fill them up from the water and go back in. Everyone thinks we're like testing the water and there's some kind of environmental hazard or something. And all we're doing is take it into the lab to stick the worms in. So.
Does anyone ever ask you, what do you tell people when they say what you're doing?
I say we're just collecting some water for our animals. And they look at it, oh my God, that's really strange. Can't they drink the tap water, I guess? They think of big animals, they don't realise they're working with little worms, I guess. Yeah. So, we lift up some stones. So they hate light. So they hide from light. They've got these big cartoon-shaped eyes that are really good at sensing light. So they go for the darkest spot they can find. It's really cold. Icy cold. So if they're around, they'll be buried into the sand to try and get some kind of warmth going. But this is the stuff I really love doing. You learn all this complicated stuff and then the fun stuff is actually getting out and being able to get your hands dirty and do some like old-fashioned collecting, you know? This is not very glamorous, or you get to go collecting in some really nice places sometimes as a scientist, but
this isn't one of them, eh?
No, this is when you know some of this might actually be quite recent excrement. Your kind of little... There we go. Woo!
What do we got? Oh yeah.
Now that's a different species, but it's in the same group of animals. Yeah, I don't know where I put it. It's really annoying. Sorry about that. Here it is. See it? Do you want me to try and...
Hang on, I'm quite zoomed in. I'm just going to get him to move like a worm. There we go. Hang on.
So, this is actually a different species, but it's much bigger than the one we work with, and it doesn't regenerate as quickly, probably. I think the coolest thing is that we can take a worm in the lab, chop its head off, and within 7 days the worm has regrown a whole new brain. Okay, so you can imagine that's an incredible thing. The brain, even in a simple worm like that, is incredibly complex. Thousands of cells have all got to be in the right place, all know what they're doing, so this animal can find its way about. And don't worry about the head, because the head's fine too. The head just regrows a new tail and crawls off. Okay? And the reason it can do that is that it's chock full of stem cells. So we think anything any one time between 15 and 25% of all the cells in this worm are stem cells. If you imagine our cells, we have stem cells, so we can make new gut, new blood, a bit of new bones sometimes, very few neurons, that's always a problem, new muscle cells. But these worms are just chock full of stem cells and they can actually replace every system in their body. So you can take any piece of tissue. So if you imagine taking my hand, my whole hand will be able to grow into a whole new me, okay? It's not quite as simple as just growing to a whole new me though. It's actually a whole new me that will be about this size. So the worm actually uses the same amount of tissue you give it to make a new brain, a new mouth, new muscles, a new nervous system. All the same things that we have, but obviously much simpler. Well, a stem cell is any cell that is capable of making more than one other type of cell, okay? So all the cells that we have in our body actually originally came from a cell which was a stem cell, okay? And in the case of human beings, the ultimate stem cell is an embryo, right? The one cell embryo before it divides. But also in our bodies, we have adult stem cells. So in our bone marrow, for example, we have cells that are capable of making all the different blood cells. So T cells, B cells, red blood cells, the cells that are a part of our immune system. So stem cell isn't just to do with embryos and fertilization of fertilized embryos. Actually, we have adult stem cells that are perfectly capable of giving rise to different types of cell. It's just they can't do all of them like an embryo can. I think that's the key.
I was going to say, if I've got stem cells in me and you've got stem cells in you, how come if I chop your arm off you don't grow a new arm?
We're just not evolved to do it. Unfortunately, unlike the worm, the stem cells we have aren't capable of making every type of other stem cell. That's one problem. The second problem is that in our genome, we don't encode the capacity or the instructions to regrow new adult tissue. We tend to be able to do it once at embryogenesis, during embryogenesis, and that's it. If you make a small wound in my skin, sure, we can cope with that. Our bodies can cope with that. But actually losing a whole organ or a whole piece of tissue, like a limb, we don't know how to do that. I mean, that's one of the reasons we're really interested in the planarians, the flatworms, is because they figured out how to do that. But we don't understand enough about how stem cells work yet. We don't understand enough about the mechanism that what makes a stem cell capable to make just nerve or just another muscle cell and all the cells. We don't understand the differences. So this idea of trying to understand, I mean, that's a hot topic right now. How can you take a human adult stem cell, reprogram it so it can do everything? It's actually been done in mouse, and it's a start. It's very messy and very hit and miss. And you get it right maybe 1 in a million times. You try a million cells and one of them will have the capacity to make all these other tissues. We're kind of taking the reverse kind of thing. We found an animal that can do what we'd like to be able to do. So within its genetic code, unlike ours, it has the capacity to make new tissues, to make stem cells that can make any other cell type. And if we can figure out how that animal does it, we hope to be able to apply those same mechanisms to medical applications. But just conceptually right now, we don't really understand how you would do that. And I think that's the main contribution of our research, is trying to understand conceptually how this worm does what it does. So what we're trying to do is understand which genes in the worm control not only how the stem cells divide and make nerves and muscles, we know quite a lot about that already, but which genes then tell these cells, the progeny if you like, the daughters of the stem cells, where to go, which other cells to hook up with, and how to do that in an adult tissue. We can know quite a lot about how that happens in an embryo, when you only have one cell and that one cell divides to make 2 and 4, and we can understand how that process takes place. But understanding how, when you've actually got all this adult tissue already, how you would regrow an organ or a limb or a brain, and how that happens in the context of something that's already an adult. I think that's conceptually different, and that's what we're trying to understand. They're really cute. One day when I first started working with them, or when I thought about working with them, a colleague of mine from Barcelona, a good friend of mine, came to work with me when I was in Edinburgh. And I said, will you draw me a picture of these worms? I've never seen them. I don't even know what they are. And she drew me this kind of worm-shaped thing with these big cartoon eyes. I thought it was just like a schematic. But I can actually show you pictures. They actually do have these cartoon character eyes. I don't know if you've ever seen them. And they're kind of cute, and they're easy to look after, no trouble, perfect pets, and they don't die.